Hey, AP World, are you ready to review? Let me know when you get here. I see I got one in the chat. How's it going? Good to see you. Let me know when you get here. I've also posted in the chat for you the study guide, just in case you haven't gotten it in class yet. If you have class tomorrow, you will be getting it tomorrow. And I also posted a link to a website that we will be using tonight. So let me know when you get on here and we will get started with this review. I'm going to send out a reminder real quick to make sure everybody remembers. Hey guys, welcome in. We got Virginia and Oscar and Mayonnaise. All right. Sounds good. Let me send out a quick remind. Don't forget about the live because it's time to review. All right, if you don't have your study guide yet, I posted it in the chat for you, and I also posted a link to a website that we're going to be using. Hey, Hammond, how's it going? How's 11th grade? Let me know how you're doing. I miss you guys. Hi, Perry. How you doing? Catherine, welcome in. Good to see you guys. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just jump right in and get started because we've got a lot to cover tonight. I want to make sure and use your time wisely. So what we see up there on the screen, that is your review. I'm not going to be going over it word for word, but I am going to cover some topics that you need to know for each section. And then we will look at, hold on just a second. Let me get this off of here. Hold on just a second. I decided to try something different and like stay in the room where I teach, but I've got like a little bit different setup. APUSH is cool, but AP World is cooler. That's right, Hammond. That's right. It sure is. APUSH is really difficult because it's very, what do I want to say? It's very specific. That's what I want to say. Yeah. Hi, Nan. Welcome in. All right. So I don't think I'm going to put the study guide on their screen. You guys have it. When we get to like the multiple choice practice, then I'll put the multiple choice questions up there. The one thing that I do want to show you, though, I'm going to share on my screen real quick. If you haven't been in history class yet, you have not seen this website. This is one that Mr. McCormick made, and it's really, really helpful. It has all of the different units up here. So I put this in the chat. It's also on your study guide, all right? And each one of the units is divided into like 1.1, 1.2, all the way to 1.7. And if you click on this, you have the AMSCO book right here. That's really helpful. There's some DBQ and LEQ stuff. We won't need that quite yet. There are some Strayer notes. Huh, I didn't know that was in there. We might have to check that out the next time we're doing our Strayer reading. All right, so that is an option for you. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. All right, we're going to get started. Hey, guys, welcome in. Good to see you all. Happy to have you. So the first thing we're going to talk about and review is East Asia. So this is on 1.1, and this would be primarily the Song Dynasty. One thing that I want you to remember is that there's an increase of state investment during this time in the dynasty. All right, basically the emperor is wanting to invest in making things better. All right, and one of the ways that he does that is through the Grand Canal. So put that down somewhere in East Asia on your study guide. Let me pull it up and see what section. I think it's mentioned on there, isn't it? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So down at the bottom where it talks about technology, that's where it talks about the Grand Canal. Hey, Damien. Hey, Kosh and T and Nan. Welcome in. Welcome in. Welcome in. We're getting started. We got to roll. We got lots to cover tonight. All right. So important thing about the Grand Canal is that it helps with transportation throughout China, especially to interior China. Another thing that you want to pay attention to is to change and continuity. Change and continuity is a historical skill that we're going to be talking about all throughout the year. Change is just how it sounds. What changes? Continuity is what stays the same. So one continuity in China at this time is the bureaucracy. And the bureaucracy is just a fancy word for the appointed officials that run the empire. Also, something to note that the bureaucracy expands under the Song dynasty, and it strengthens the dynasty for a while. But then it becomes corrupt and will lead to one of the reasons that the dynasty falls. So make sure to remember that the bureaucracy is a continuity in the Song China. Bureaucracy is just a fancy name for appointed officials, and that it expands during the Song dynasty, strengthens the empire for a little while. I'm going to kind of move this over a little bit while you guys are writing that. If my mic turns off, just type that in the chat. Sometimes it mutes itself for some reason. I have no idea. No idea why. All right, the next thing we want to talk about is civil service exams. So before civil service exams, the way that people would get jobs in government were kind of through favors or through knowing someone. But the problem with that is that sometimes people would get a job and they wouldn't be very good at it. So they came up with the civil service exams to kind of show to make people prove whether or not they could do the job. So it was a test to prove that you were worthy of the job. Koala, you can grab the study guide from the very top. It's the very first comment that I put on there. That is the study guide that you should have gotten from class. Let's see, if you had AP World today, then you would have gotten it today. If you don't have it yet, if you have it tomorrow, then you're going to get it tomorrow. So you can access it through that link. All right, the thing that's important to remember about the civil service exams is that it's based on knowledge of the Confucian text. It's based on the knowledge of the Confucian text. And it does allow for some social mobility. Social mobility just means that you're able to climb the ranks a little bit, all right? Without social mobility, like the opposite of that would be born into your role, and you can't change it. But the civil service exams does allow for you to be able to change your destiny a little bit. However, the poor are at a disadvantage. Why? Because they can't afford education the way that the wealthy can. So there are some poor people who manage to get into civil service jobs, but predominantly it's the wealthy because they have access to education. So put down that this allows some social mobility, but the poor are still at a disadvantage. And let me know if I'm giving you guys enough time to write it down. I was going to be in with my chalkboard, but I was just too tired to move all this stuff. I just couldn't do it. This digital teaching's a lot. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is champa rice. Champa rice is important. It's drought-resistant rice, and it spreads through trade. Drought-resistant just means that it can live through a drought. It doesn't need a lot of water. And this allows farmers to grow 2 crops per year instead of just one, because it's also a very high yield and fast ripening. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm going to put that in the chat for you. So the 3 things to remember about it are that it's drought resistant, it's high yield, so it produces quickly. Yield, if I can spell it right. And it spreads through trade. And because of all those things, farmers could grow more. They could grow 2 crops a year instead of just 1. If in doubt, and you have the option of answering the question spreads through trade, that's what the answer mostly is. Because during this time frame, everything is spreading through trade. Religions, items, all these things spreading through trade. So just keep that in the back of your head for an emergency. All right, we also have the tribute system. The tribute system is where foreign countries have to pay tribute the Chinese emperor in order to trade and have a good relationship with China. I'll say that again. Foreign countries have to pay a tribute to the Chinese emperor in order to trade and have a good relationship with China. And they are required to kowtow. Here's how you spell it. Kowtow is basically getting down on your hands and knees as low as you possibly can to the ground in order to show respect. And we didn't talk about this guy much, but this guy is an explorer. How you pronounce his name is Young Ho, I think, or Jung Ho. Anyway, he was an explorer in China, and he would take fleets of ships to go and collect tributes from other countries. Well, they wouldn't have really been countries, other empires at the time. All right. Then we have Neo-Confucianism. Neo-Confucianism is a blend of Taoism and Buddhism. Blend of Taoism and Buddhism. Where are we on the review? Not real sure because I don't know if I went in order. I just kind of went with it. It would be in culture, and Neo-Confucianism is in culture. Kind of just like hitting on the real important things for each unit just because I don't have time to do every single thing. That's not saying that you shouldn't do the whole study guide because it will definitely be helpful, but these are the things that you definitely for sure want to remember. Other stuff you should remember too, but these are like the most important. Keep in mind, Neo-Confucianism is one of those syncretic religions. We talked about that word, syncretic or syncretism. And if you watched the Silk Road video, you learned about syncretic in that video as well from Ruscio. Did you guys like that video? I hope you liked it. It was fun. So Neo-Confucianism is one of those syncretic religions that blends two religions together, making something new. All right, and then you often need to know about women in a society. Women during the Song Dynasty are going to mainly be in control of the home. They don't have a lot of rights. And one thing that restricts them was foot binding. Remember we talked about foot binding where they basically like break the bones in the foot to keep your feet really little. And that was considered very beautiful at the time if your feet were bound. But it was also very painful for the woman, and it restricted her to the house because she couldn't walk very well without pain. Also, keep in mind that these relationships, the gender roles and things, are because of this belief in Confucianism. Remember, Confucianism is all about respect and relationships. The emperor and this, not the servant, but the one that he rules. I can't remember the name of that. The husband to the son has to respect, or the husband to the wife has to respect the husband. The father to the son respects the father. Confucianism is all about those relationships. So if you're ever asked a question about, why women had to stay in the home at this time in China, it's usually influenced by Confucian. All right, in the technology portion of Song Dynasty or of East Asia, we talked a lot about gunpowder spreading on the Silk Road. That's going to change how the different empires fight. And another one is wood block printing. Let me see if I can find a picture of that to show you. Wood block printing. That's not a very big one. Well, you'll have to look it up on Wikipedia. I can't find a very big picture. But they would take, like each letter would be on a wood block, and they would lay it out and put ink on it and then lay the paper on it. So this will eventually become the Gutenberg press. Eventually it will go through the Silk Road and get all the way to Europe, and Gutenberg will kind of perfect it. And then this helps book printing become cheaper. All right, another thing that I want you to add into East Asia is Japanese feudalism. And I'm going to put that down here in case you need to know how to spell it. Japanese feudalism is very similar to feudalism in Europe. And it's for a similar reason. The reason that they had it was because they didn't have a centralized government. At the top is the emperor, but he doesn't really have a lot of power. The person who actually rules is the shogun, and it's spelled like this. Under the shogun is the daimyo. They're like the nobles in the European feudalism. So they're land-owning aristocrats. And then under them are the samurai. They're kind of like the knights in feudalism. And remember that the knights in feudalism follow what's called the Code of Chivalry. The samurai follow the Bushido Code, which is similar. It's a code of honor. And then at the bottom are the peasants. They work the land. Other ways that these are similar is that they're both hereditary systems. There's no social mobility. So you're born into the roles. All right, moving on to 1.2, Dar al-Islam. Let's see where this one starts. I guess you could put this with like treatment of non-Muslims. And you're going to want to put down that there is a tax on non-Muslims, and this is how you spell it. So this was kind of good in a way because it allowed people who were not Muslim to still practice their religion, but they did have to pay a tax. It also appeals to the poor because Islam taught equality. Also put down that Muslims, the Muslim world, that is, Dar al-Islam, valued culture and education. This spread during the Crusades, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And it also spread under the Umayyad Caliphate when they ruled Spain. Other reasons that Islam spread, definitely equality. It was similar to what other Arabs already believed. And it spread through the trade routes. And those trade routes were primarily the Trans-Saharan in Africa, and the Indian Ocean helped spread Islam between East Africa and India. We're going to go on to 1.3 because we did the Dar al-Islam questions, so you should have the rest of those answers in your questions. So 1.3 is about South and Southeast Asia. The Delhi Sultanate in India, one important thing to remember with them is that Islam moves in, and Hindus are going to resent Islamic leaders because of the jizya tax, the tax on non-Muslims. I have this gnat I've been trying to get the whole night. He's driving me crazy. Okay. Also put down that the sultans that run the Delhi Sultanate will eventually lose their power to the Mughals. And I'll put their name in here, Mughals. And we'll talk about them the next unit because it doesn't happen until 1526. But they'll keep power until then. Another part of Dar al-Islam is the Mamluks, and they are a group of Muslim slave warriors who take over Egypt. We also have the Seljuk Turks. They're supporting education in Dar al-Islam, so they're big on that. And then underneath that, if you scroll down a little bit, let's see, where is it at? Scroll all the way down to where it says politics, and then it has all those different empires. We're going to talk about those real quick. There are different empires, land-based and sea-based kingdoms. Okay, not really empires, but more kingdoms. And Hinduism spreads from India to Southeast Asia into these kingdoms. So somewhere just put above all those kingdoms that Hinduism is spreading from India into Southeast Asia. And one of the kingdoms is the Kumar Empire or Angkor Wat. So beside Kumar Empire, put Angkor Wat. There, they go by both names. In Angkor Wat, or the Kumar Empire, temples are built that display Hindu artwork. So the rulers convert to Hinduism and they build these temples. However, what's really interesting about this kingdom is that some rulers will eventually later practice Buddhism, and they add Buddhist artwork into the temples, but they keep the Hindu artwork. So put that down, that some rulers are later going to practice Buddhism. They will add in Buddhist artwork and keep the Hindu artwork. This is one of the land-based kingdoms, and so they also have a very good irrigation system. You can put that down for it as well. Then we have the Sinhala kingdom, and for them, you need to put down that they are Buddhist. They also have an irrigation system. This one is one of the sea-based empires. I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm not going to butcher it, but I put it in the chat for you. This is a sea-based empire. It is a Hindu kingdom. And they will prosper because of making money off of the sea traders that are going through from China to India. So let me just show you a map real quick if I can find a good one. That's not very big either. That's a tweet, so that's not going to be very big. All right. Do I got my screen? Let's see if you can see this. So right here are all these kingdoms that we're talking about, and the traders would come from China through here to get to India. And so they would be paying taxes and fees as they're going through there. All right, and then the last one that we're going to mention is this one. And I also don't know how to pronounce that. I need to look it up. I'm not sure if it's phonetic or not. But anyway, they are a Buddhist kingdom, and they also make money off of sea trade. Another thing that you want to remember is that Islam is going to be going into the region as well through the merchants. So eventually, Hindu won't be the only religion that's spreading there, but Islam as well. And that's how Sufis happen. And I think Sufis are on there as well. Yes, the Baqadi movement and Sufism. And that's in the AMSCO book, so you can read about that. All right, let's flip to the Americas. That's 1.4. And I want you to mainly focus on the different empires, the Inca, the Aztec, and the Mayan. For the Inca, put down, they're in Peru. And they practice a system called the Metis system. You'll probably see this in a question at some point. And the Metis system is basically that every male has to work for the government. It's like a mandatory public service. They don't have to do it forever, but they have to do it for like a certain number of months out of the year, I think. And it basically ensures that people are helping their government. For religion, I believe that religion is on there. Where is it at? Yeah, so state religions under culture. Put down that they're polytheistic religions. So they have many gods. And the Aztec and the Mayans also practice human sacrifice. Definitely wouldn't want to be a prisoner of war with the Aztec or the Mayans. And there's some other information about them in the AMSCO book as well. We're going to move on to Africa. For Africa, under hierarchy, you can put that it's tribal. And then in politics, let's see, or interaction maybe. You could probably put the Bantu under interaction since you're going to keep that empty anyway. but you definitely need to know about them. The Bantu are going to be an early tribe. I just put their name in the chat for you so you know how to spell it. They're credited with migrating, and as they migrate, they share their language and their agricultural technology. Eventually, Swahili will talk about how it's the mix of Bantu language and Arabic. And the reason that it's on the East Coast is because of this migration that happens early on. The trans-Saharan trade route is responsible for a lot of the change in African kingdoms. We talked a lot about the change in African kingdoms. Remember, we said that they're mostly tribal, and then because of the trans-Saharan trade route, they get a little bit more centralized where the kingdoms are set up and kings start to run things, and that's because of the trade route. So definitely put down that the trans-Saharan trade route brings about change in how African kingdoms are politically run. And an example of that is Mansa Musa in Mali. He's the richest man in the world. He's the one that takes the Hajj to Mecca. And as he's going, he's just basically like spending all kinds of money, just like handing it out, showing his wealth. That all comes from the trans-Saharan trade route. Another change that happens because of the trans-Saharan trade route is that Islam comes in. So you could say that Islam is spreading through the merchants, which will change African religions. Most of the African religions were, based around animals or polytheistic, and now a lot of the African kingdoms will be going towards Islam. Then over in East Africa, we have the Indian Ocean trade route. That brings about change as well. One place is Zimbabwe or Zimbabwe. Not sure. Is it Zimbabwe or Zimbabwe? Anybody know? Let me know. They become wealthy from trade. And then, of course, we have the Swahili language, which is the mixture of Bantu and Arabic. That is a syncretic language. Anybody have any questions so far, or are you just frantically writing? It's good for you that you're writing it, because that's one way to remember it. Or typing it. I often type things. All right, next we have Europe. Let's go on to Europe. 1.6, developments in Europe. First way, huh? Okay. Thank you, Nan. I appreciate it. I try really hard with pronunciation. Chinese pronunciation is really hard for me. I had a student last year who spoke Chinese, so she was helping me all the time. I was probably very annoying to her. But bless her heart, she helped me a lot. Okay, so let's first review feudalism. Feudalism, remember, kings on top. Then we have the noble. Then we have the knights and the peasants at the bottom. This is upheld by religion. Specifically, the divine right of kings. And I need to spell that right. The divine right of kings. That was an idea that said the king has a right to rule because God put him in that spot. This is a hereditary system. If God didn't want him to rule, he wouldn't have been born as king. So divine right of kings was saying that God wants him in that spot. That was a way of kind of keeping order. And reinforcing the legitimacy of the king so that people would follow him. And that for the most part, at this time, people were Christian. So that was an important part of their life. The Pope also has a lot of power during this time. So oftentimes when you watch about the kings and queens and the Pope, they're always at constant battle with each other, like who's going to have the most power. The Pope has a lot of power because of who he is as Pope and the fact that Christians follow him. He is also responsible for starting the Crusades. So a quick recap about the Crusades. They were because the Christians were trying to get the Holy Land back from the Muslims. What we know now as Israel-Palestine area, that's the Holy Land. It's holy to Christians, Muslims, and Jews. At the time, the Muslims weren't letting Christians come in, and that was a problem. And the Pope says, okay, guys, if we go and get the Holy Land back, then you can sin all you want. As long as you kill a Muslim or two, your sins will be forgiven. So the Knights were like, sweet, we can go sin all we want and have our sins forgiven. And that's what started the Crusades. And they go to the Holy Land to try to get the Holy Land back. There are several of these crusade missions. Some are successful, some are not. In the end, the Christians leave to go home to Europe, and the Muslims can still control that area. But there is an impact of this. And the impact is interregional contact that spreads culture. So let's see. Interregional, that's what I was going to put. Interregional contact. Anytime you see that word, that just means a big fancy word for two regions kind of coming in contact with each other. So because the Knights were going to the Middle East, they were getting items from the Middle East, taking them back to Europe. And we talked a lot about how most of the Europeans never leave their villages, right? They're there to stay. So when all these items come back from the Middle East, they're thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. And now there's this demand for goods. And so that starts this need for trade between the two areas. So interregional contact spreads culture as well as technology. And the increased demand for items from the Middle East begins. There's an increased demand for items from the Middle East. It wasn't so cool for Jerusalem, actually, because the Crusades were pretty bloody. If you've ever watched the show Nightfall, I think it's on Netflix. I think it's on Netflix. There at the very beginning of the first, the pilot episode, is one of the battles of the last Crusades. The rest of the show is not very historically accurate. I know because I was Googling it the whole time. But that battle is really interesting. And it's one of the battles that happened in that crusade. So it was very, very bad and bloody for the people that were in the Holy Land. All right. One other thing that you need to remember is that the divine right of kings, I told you, was used to hold up feudalism and to kind of legitimize the king. Sometimes, though, religious leaders would also use it to rebel against feudalism and using religion. Like they would use their religion and they would say that God didn't want them in this kind of system. So they would use it to go against it or rebel. They made it to Jerusalem several times. I think there were 5 or 6 crusades. I can't remember exactly how many. There was also a children's crusade that was kids under 12 that were going to go and get the Holy Land back. And they made it pretty far too. I don't think they made it all the way to the Holy Land though. And it's definitely interesting time in history. Unfortunately, we can't really spend a lot of time there, which is a bummer. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about multiple choice questions now, okay? So let me get this out here a little bit so you can see the whole thing. All right. So your multiple choice questions will be stimulus based. That means that you will have a primary source or some sort of a document, sometimes a picture or a graph that goes with your question. The first thing that you want to do is read the question, because sometimes you may not even need the document to answer the question. Sometimes it might just be a basic knowledge question, like what was the purpose of the Crusades or something like that. And if you know that out of your head, then you don't even have to read the document. So that's really cool to know that. If you do need to read the document, like for instance, this question, what is the point of view of this document? That you definitely need to read the document in order to know the point of view for the document, right? So I'm going to read that question first as a test taker, and I'm going to say, all right, I'm looking for the point of view of the document. Now, we learned that point of view is who is the author, what do they believe, and why do they believe it? So we need to look for who this person is that's talking about the in the document, and what are they talking about? Why do they believe what they're saying? What about that person makes them believe that? Okay. So we're looking at Marco Polo. Now, the first thing that you need to know is who Marco Polo is, right? That's why studying is so important for a multiple choice test, because if you don't know who Marco Polo is, you're probably going to have a really hard time with this question. So that's the first thing. If I'm looking for point of view, I'm going to look and see who the author is. And I'm going to be like, oh, well, Marco Polo was a traveler who went to China. That's what I know about him in my head. All right. And I would get that information from studying. Now I'm going to look at the document. And remember, I'm trying to figure out what he believes and why he believes that. So it says, with these pieces of paper, they can buy anything and pay for anything. And I can tell you that the papers that reckon as 10 bezants, which is a quantity of money, do not weigh one. There is no one who does not visit a bathhouse at least 3 times a week and take a bath. In winter, every day, if he can manage it. Every man of rank or means has his own bathroom in his house. Here, too, the inhabitants worship Muhammad. Spelled that wrong. Worship Muhammad and are subject to the Great Khan. It has villages and towns in plenty. Okay, so what does he believe about China? He seems pretty impressed by it, right? And he's talking about how they have paper money, they take a bath every day, and they worship Muhammad and are subjects of the Great Khan. So we haven't learned about Marco Polo yet, but when the Mongols take over, they come in and they take over and they make this big empire, and then the grandsons of Genghis Khan take over. So the Great Khan is actually Kublai Khan, and he's the one that's in charge when Marco Polo goes in there. And the reason I chose this one is because it's not going to be on the test, so sorry about that. But this is a good one to practice on, because it proves to you that you need to know a little bit of information going into this, right? There's no way you're going to get that question if you don't know Marco Polo or the fact that he's going to China and who the Great Khan is, right? So what does he believe? Well, he seems pretty impressed with how things are set up. Now, another thing that I know is that the Europeans at this time don't really bathe very much. They kind of have this idea that it might make you sick if you bathe too much. So the Europeans are kind of dirty people. And I think this is why he was so impressed with the fact that, hey, they're bathing almost on a daily basis. Like, that's interesting, right? You probably wouldn't know that. That's probably not something that we would like specifically talk about in class, but I just wanted to share it with you because when I was reading it today, I thought that's really interesting because he definitely sounds impressed by that. And that's the reason he sounds impressed by that. He also just sounds impressed in general, and that, you know, China maybe isn't this barbarian country that everybody thinks it is, right? So let's look down here and see if we can figure out which one it is. There's usually going to be an answer that's obviously wrong. There's usually going to be 2 that are kind of similar. So let's see if we can pick it out. A says Marco Polo is from China and is writing in a Chinese point of view. He believes that China is a great place to live because he is from there. Should we even keep that one in there? What do you think? Yes or no? The question is 20, or the test is 20 questions and 1 SAQ. So is A even in the running? What do you think? Point of view, Marco Polo is from China. What do you think? Anybody want to take a guess? Yes or no? I'm waiting for some comments here. Nobody wants to be brave? All right, we'll keep it in the running. We'll see what you think. Next one is Marco Polo is a Muslim and encourages those in China to be Muslim as well. C, Marco Polo is traveling to China from Italy. He has a Christian point of view. Most in Europe at this time consider the Chinese barbarians, so he is impressed with their culture. And D, Marco Polo is from Mongolia and doesn't like outsiders. He writes from a judgmental point of view for this reason. All right, so we said no to number 1, right? Good. That name does not sound Chinese. Very, very good point. It doesn't. So what do you think the answer would be? I'm sure you've all played Marco Polo in the swimming pool. Did you know who Marco Polo was when you were playing that game? It's definitely not A. Look at B. Does it look like he's encouraging people to be Muslim? Does he talk about, I mean, he says, here are the inhabitants worship Muhammad, but does he talk about encouraging them? Not really. Yes, so is it Runtian? Runtian is right. It is C. Marco Polo is traveling from China, or to China from Italy, and he's a Christian, so he comes at it with this Christian point of view. Now, that would have been a lot easier if you would have known who Marco Polo was. So just keep that in mind, that that's the first thing that you're going to want to try to do to deduct, take away answers and whatnot, okay? Now, the next question, because sometimes there's going to be 2 questions with 1 stimulus. Keep in mind that the way that OnTrack does it is it gives you the stimulus for each question. So if you read the stimulus and then you go to the next question and it's the same one, you may not have to read it again because you might remember it from the last one. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're taking the test next week. So the next question is, who is the audience of the document and why is that important? So the audience is, who is it written for? T says, I'm thinking Marco Polo was an astronaut. No, he was not an astronaut. He definitely was not. All right. So who is the audience? So who is Marco Polo writing this for? Here's our options. Letter A, the audience is other Chinese people and Marco Polo is writing to inform them of their culture. B, the audience is other Europeans and Marco Polo is writing to inform them about Chinese culture since most of them will probably never visit China. C, Marco Polo is writing for future college students so that they can learn about China. D, Marco Polo is writing to keep track of his journey and he doesn't care who reads it. What do you think? You wanted to make a Marco Polo joke, huh? That's funny. What do you guys think? Who's the audience? A, B, C, or D? I'll give you a hint. Never, ever, 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 ever in a DBQ, SAQ, whatever you're writing, whatever you're choosing, never choose future college students or future students. That's never the answer. You won't get points for that on a DBQ or an essay. So C is not correct. B is correct. Yes, he's writing it for the Europeans. Very good. His whole purpose was to write this journal and take this information back and make it a book. So we know that that's his audience. So very good. Save my suffering. No, it's definitely not C. All right. Hold on just a second. I got to move the answers down a little bit. Okay. So next we're going to look at this SAQ. You have 1 SAQ tomorrow. Remember, the SAQ is broken up between A, B, and C. Not tomorrow. On Monday or Tuesday. So sorry. I can't remember what day it is. All right, so SAQ, A, B, and C. Usually they have to do with the same topic. So for this one, it is focusing on Europe and feudalism. So letter A says, explain one way in which European states changed due to interregional contact through the Crusades. So the first thing that you want to do is always write a topic sentence. And you want to use that prompt in your topic sentence in some way. So for example, you could say European states changed, or one way that European states changed due to interregional contact through the Crusades was that there was a demand for goods from the Middle East that people didn't know existed before the Crusades. Something like that, okay? So let's say that's what we're going to talk about. With change, remember this because you'll get points taken away if you don't do this. With change, you have to say what it was like before the change and what it's like after the change, because that shows that the change happened. So you would want to talk about how before the Crusades, many Europeans had never left their village. Then during the Crusades, they left to go win back the Holy Land. And when they came back, they brought with them items from the Middle East. These items had never been seen before, and now there was a demand for these items. If you can throw in some specific examples, that's even better and will make your SAQ a lot stronger. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is do that topic sentence. If it's a change, say how or say what it was like before and what it's like after. And then generally just answer how this happens and why it happens. So I said how it happened. It was because of the Crusades. I said why it happens because they're going to win back the Holy Land. And then when you're explaining the things that they're bringing back, that would be more of the how. Okay, so keep how and why in your mind. That's what you want to try to remember to answer with the SAQ questions. As many vocab words as you can throw in there, that's great too, because that shows that you know what you're talking about. Okay. Letter B says explain one effect of feudalism on societies in Europe. Well, you could talk about how because feudalism is a hereditary, because you're born into feudalism and there's no social mobility. So you could talk about how that affects society and keeps peasants in their place. Once again, you want to have a topic sentence. You want to explain how and why. This isn't a change, so you don't have to show the before and after, but you do want to explain how and why. Okay? And then letter C, explain one way in which religion supported feudalism in societies. That's where you could talk about the divine right of kings. So you could say one way in which religion supported feudalism in societies of Europe was through the divine right of kings, and then explain how it did that and why it did it. It did it through people believing in Christianity and believing that God was choosing the king and therefore they had to follow him. Why did they do it? To legitimize the king, to make sure that people followed the king, right? And to keep him in control. That would get you the points for that SAQ. Does anybody have any questions about SAQ? We haven't practiced it much, so I understand that it's still a little bit rough, but you want to make sure that you have the topic sentence so that the reader knows what you're talking about and explain how and why it happens. And then if it's a change, explain before and after the change. Now, the other reason why that study guide is so important is because that gives you information for the SAQ. You can't write this if you have no idea what the Crusades were or interregional trade or anything like that. So that brings me to my last point. Once you're done with your study guide, are you done? Nope. You are not done. Then you need to study the study guide. What? You need to study the study guide? What are you telling us, Misty? I'm telling you, you need to have that study guide memorized, all right? So throughout this weekend, once you get that study guide done, you have a couple of choices. Make some flashcards if you want. I study best with regular index cards that I make into flashcards. And I put the topic on the front and the answer on the back. That way I can quiz myself. And how I did it and still do it today when I need to memorize stuff, I have a stack of index cards and I go through them. And if I get it wrong, I put it back in the stack. If I get it right, it goes in the stack. And then once all of them are over in that stack, then I go back through them again. That's studying, all right? And that's the kind of effort that you need to put into learning this information. It will pay off, I'm telling you. If you don't like flashcards, fine. Do a Quizlet, do a Kahoot and play it yourself. You could even send the link to another friend in AP World History and you guys could compete against each other. Because when you're making those study materials, that's also studying because you're writing it down or you're typing it or whatever. So you're also getting it that time. And then when you play and use those study materials, that's 3 times that you're going over it. You could also read over your study guide. Look at your notes and read over those. Look at your reading questions and read over those. Any notes that we took from reading questions. All that stuff is important and you have to get it in your head because a lot of this is about memorization and then being able to apply what you've memorized to the test. Okay, so let's see what we got over here in the questions. I'm going to bring this back over here. Runtian says there's a massive increase in the demand for the Middle East goods due to interregional contract through trade. Yes, that would be a good topic sentence. European nations used to the secular, and most people never left their home. Okay, yeah. After the Crusades, Crusaders brought back sugarcane. Yes, that would be good. Immediately gain. Yep, that would be good. That would give you the point for that one. Miss Quez, why are you my recommended? I graduated this year. Listen, dude, you need to still give me those watch minutes, okay? I'm so close to getting monetized. So close. So, just let it on replay. Mute me if you want. I don't care, but give me those watch minutes. And it's always recommended that you learn world history, even if you graduate, my friend. All right. Yeah, that's right. I'm a great YouTuber. That's right. I'm so close to monetizing and making a couple of pennies for this. That'll be awesome. My plan is if I ever become a YouTube millionaire, we're going to go on awesome world history field trips. Like, wouldn't that be amazing? So give me those watch minutes so we can go, maybe like in 20 years when I'm a millionaire. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But you guys are the original time machine travelers. So you definitely get to go on those trips. All right, guys. So that pretty much wraps up our study guide session tonight. Does anybody have any questions before you go? There you go. Stream Miss Z for good grades. I like it. You still have to study. You still got to put in a little bit of effort, but I definitely can talk history all night long. I love talking history. It's a lot of fun. Best of luck to you guys. So J33 Squad, you got to tell me who you are. I don't remember that name, so you must have not commented a lot when you listened to my videos in the past. Let me know who you are. All right. So anyway, if you have any questions over the weekend as you're studying, just let me know. But the most important thing is to get this information in your head. That way, when you get on the test, you can say, oh, I know who that person is, and I know what that's all about, and I got this, and I got that. And then you can apply it to whatever stimulus you're reading. Okay? That's the most important thing. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to get out of here and go do some relaxation for about an hour or so before I go to bed. You're so welcome, Perry. Paris. I'm still getting you all's names. Sahir, what's up? Do you know any place where we can practice SAQs? Well, that's a good question. In the AMSCO book, so when you go to, let me show my screen again here. Put this over here. Oh, okay. When you go here in the AMSCO book, in these units, there are some practices, and of course, right now my internet's being poopy and it's not coming up. But at the end of each one of these units, there are practice questions. And if you want to practice them and send them to me, I will look at them and give you feedback, and there's not there. Okay, so some of them, at the end of some of them, there are practice questions. Let me see if I can find some. There are also some in the Strayer book, I think. I'll have to look and see if I can find them in the Strayer book. These are kind of like SAQ questions, you could use those for SAQs. They're just not in the same form. Oh, you know what? Here's some too. Here's an SAQ. So you could practice this one. He's got some here on his website. And then there are some in the AMSCO book. I'll just have to find them for you. I think they're at maybe at the end of the main chapter. Oh, that's the rubric. Right here. So each one of them, he's got an SAQ. You're more than welcome to practice those. Just email me the whole thing so that I have the question, because I didn't write these. So if you're going to use this one, like grab all of this, copy and paste it on a Google Doc, and you can practice those. And I think he's got one in each one of these topics. Right here. Oh, that's the rubric again. Nope. I guess he doesn't have one here. And if you want more, I can definitely give you more. But these look pretty good. So I would suggest starting with those. And then we will be practicing a lot more in class too. We just haven't had a ton of time to do that because of, you know, our limited schedule and stuff. But I can definitely round up some more for you guys to practice as well. So here, because they definitely will be good to practice. You guys are so welcome. Thank you so much for your appreciation. So I don't have a link to the AMSCO book, T. I just have this website where this other teacher posted it. I don't know where he got it, but I'll give you this link right here. That's the one, and you can see here, let me show you again. Up here are all of the Unit 1 chapters, and then he's got all the other units down here. So we'll be able to use this all year long, and I'm pretty sure in each one of these he has the AMSCO book linked. It's always right here under AMSCO reading. And then also don't forget that you have your online textbook. That online textbook is a great resource too because it goes a little bit more in depth. However, what's really great about the AMSCO book is that it's quicker. So it's really easy to get in there and like find specific things if you just need a little bit of information about it. Okay? You're so welcome, Sahir. You guys have a wonderful, fabulous night, and I will see you either tomorrow or Friday. All right? Let me know if you have any questions as you're going along, and I'll be available through Remind and Teams and also in class when I see you again. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. Have a fantastic night and keep studying. I believe in you. I know you can do it. All right, talk to you later.